Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to go my review of WWE's Worlds Collide. Starting off the night, we got Rey Mysterio, luchador legend, coming out to the ring, grabs a microphone. He talks about the first Worlds Collide that he was a part of, which I believe took place around 1994. Rey talks about how far Lucha Libre has come over time, and it has. I mean, for people that don't really know, AAA has been around for quite some time. Obviously there's also CMLL as well, but, there is a long, history lineage for Lucha Libre that spans for a very long time. I would consider probably since the 30s, that has spanned from then till now. And we have the names of like Rey Mysterio, Psychosis. They also mention other legends like Blue Demon, El Santo, Eddie Guerrero, and what those guys had did when they were there as well, and other luchadors obviously that I'm not familiar with, but that made a severe impact in Lucha Libre that still spans to this day. I mean, you have guys like that we see on this card at Worlds Collide. You see guys in CMML like Mystico, you see Mr. Iguana, you see Octagon Jr. That made that are still making a name and still making Lucha Libre still known to this day. Mascara Dorada. All these luchadors that have been, putting the time in, really getting Lucha Libre, not just only showcased in Mexico, but also being showcased in the States as well. And it's something that some fans are, salivating for, because a lot of fans, including myself, man, if you go back in time and you look at what Rey Mysterio did, and the reason why everybody's thinking about Rey is because Rey was the guy. Rey Mysterio, to me, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, was a guy that, started off in AAA. And it was also very young when he started in AAA. And then obviously he went from AAA over to ECW. And then eventually made, a worldwide debut, if you will, in WCW, where a lot of people got to see and know who Rey Mysterio was. So Rey Mysterio really cut his teeth as far as, the American fans seeing what he can do was in WCW. When he was in the Cruiserweight division, under WCW's umbrella. So, I mean, and what he did in those matches, a lot of people were like, man, holy shit, I cannot wait to see this guy next week or on Nitro or on Thunder or, next WCW pay-per-view, because, the shit that he was doing in the ring was before his time. But like, I mean, the stuff that he was doing, man, was just incredible. It was like, it was stuff that you didn't think that he was going to do, but he did it. And he was successful in doing it. I remember the match that he had at Halloween Havoc with Eddie Guerrero where it was hair versus mask. It was a great match. I mean, both Eddie and Rey took it to the max. For the minute that bell rang, these guys were going at it. And it put on one incredible match, an incredible moment for WCW, but it was also a moment for Lucha Libre to showcase what these guys can do and what Lucha Libre had meant to them. And they wanted to showcase what they can do in that ring and showcase to the world what Lucha Libre is all about. You also have Conan. Conan plays a big factor in what AAA has done and what it's become as well. He's been around AAA for quite some time. He's also still working with AAA at this very time. And, he was on commentary during Worlds Collide as well. So, I mean, the lineage that AAA has and Lucha Libre has over, like I said, since the 1930s, 1940s. I mean, you got guys like El Santo. You guys, Blue Demon Jr. You also have Mil Mascaras as well, was another guy that really kind of mainstreamed Lucha Libre into the States as well. I mean, he was a part of WWE back in the day, or WWF, if you want to call it that. So, and again, Hall of Famer, Mil Mascaras is a legend. So, I mean, especially El Santo. El Santo was a huge deal in Mexico. I mean, El Santo was the guy. That was their guy. And he was the Hulk Hogan. Honestly, I know it's far-fetched for me to say Hulk Hogan, but I'm saying as far as popularizing the sport, Hulk Hogan was very popular. For people that don't even watch wrestling, they still know or have an idea of who Hulk Hogan is. Well, I'm sure when you go to Mexico, a lot of people, even if they didn't watch Lucha Libre, they have an idea of who El Santo was, because he wrestled for so long. And the fans were supporting El Santo, and he was a huge deal in Mexico. He was also in movies. You know what I mean? He had that great rivalry with Blue Demon. So, I mean, it was captivating for a lot of fans in Mexico to watch El Santo or Blue Demon. I mean, a lot of people, especially in Mexico, love Lucha Libre. It's one of their main, sports, to be honest with you. And then, we see what it's become today, and it's just, It's awesome, man. It's absolutely awesome. And, I was happy that WWE brought back this event. Since, like I said, the last time we've seen a Worlds Collide event was 1994. And now here we are in 2025, and we're getting a second Worlds Collide event now to showcase to the fans around the world what Lucha Libre is all about. So I'm all for that. Ray also talks about, his love for Lucha Libre and what it's done for him in his career as well during this segment. And, what it gave him. It gave him an opportunity. It gave him a chance to really showcase his skills, showcase his talent, and really gave himself a hell of a career that's still going till this day. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's still wrestling till this day. So, a lot of people, you'll hear other luchadors saying that they have a lot of praise for Rey. Like I said, Rey Mysterio was the guy, in my honest opinion, to really put Lucha Libre on the map and get a lot of people, wondering what the hell's going on with this Lucha Libre stuff, and got a lot of people interested in what Lucha Libre was all about. And Rey was at the flagship of that. And I think Rey will always go down in history as one of those guys that really mainstreamed what Lucha Libre was all about. So there's a lot of praise for Rey Mysterio. But moving on from that, we go into our first official match of Worlds Collide. It's a 6-man tag team matchup. It is Mr. Iguana teaming up with Aerostar and Octagon Jr., taking on LWO and Lince Dorado. The match itself was a good match, man. It was a back-and-forth matchup between both teams, with the LWO and Lince Dorado keeping the pace of the match. Cruz and Iguana both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Iguana hitting a springboard Hurricane Rana. Dorado hits a springboard Hurricane Rana of his own. Octagon Jr. and Dorado both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Octagon Jr. hitting an avalanche fall-away slam off the top rope, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Mr. Iguana, Aerostar, and Octagon Jr. After the match, you can see Dominic Mysterio sitting ringside with Liv Morgan. Mysterio grabs a microphone. He mocks Octagon Jr. All of a sudden, Octagon Jr. then attacks Dominic Mysterio ringside. Both are pretty much exchanging fists throughout the whole segment, which ultimately leads Dominic Mysterio announcing that it would be himself defending the Intercontinental Championship at Money in the Bank against Octagon Jr. later on in the night at Money in the Bank. Some interesting stuff there between Dominic Mysterio and Octagon Jr. Moving on from that, we go into another tag team matchup. It is Daily's and Chick Tormenta versus Lola Vice and Stephanie Vacure. I thought this was a good match, back and forth matchup here between both teams, with Vacure and Lola keeping the pace of the match. Lola uses a hip attack in the corner. Tormenta then hits a power slam on Lola in the middle of the ring. Vacure then hits an EFT on Daily's. Daily's and Vacure then both exchange in the middle of the ring. Vice and Vacure then hit a devil's kiss in the middle of the ring. Vice then hits a senton to the outside, but Vacure hits the finish, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Lola Vice and Stephanie Vacure. Hats off to Lola Vice and Stephanie Vacure for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Legado del Fantasma taking on Hijo del Wagner, Pagano, and Psycho Clown. I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Legado del Fantasma keeping the pace of the match. Psycho Clown hits a power slam in the middle of the ring. Humberto then hits a standing moonsault. Pagano then hits a blockbuster in the middle of the ring. Wagner and Escobar both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Garza hitting a moonsault to the outside. Wagner then hits a senton off the steel steps. Psycho Clown then hits a powerbomb, brutal powerbomb. Escobar then hits a Hurricane Rana off the top on Wagner. Then Escobar hits a Phantom Driver in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Legado del Fantasma. Hats off to Legado del Fantasma for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night, probably match of the night for me. It's for the NXT North American Championship. It is Javon Evans taking on Laredo Kid, Ray Phoenix, and Ethan Page. Like I said, man, this was match of the night for me. Back and forth matchup. Phoenix was keeping the pace of the match. Laredo Kid hits a moonsault to the outside, followed by a flip into a DDT. Evans then goes coast to coast. Evans then hits a springboard cutter. Phoenix then hits a Phoenix driver for a near fall, followed by a Spanish fly. Page then hits an Ego's Edge for a near fall. Evans then hits a springboard cutter, but Page hits a cutter of his own, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match, and still NXT North American Champion, is Ethan Page. Hats off to Ethan Page for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the AAA Mega Championship. It is Vikingo defending the AAA Mega Championship against Chad Gable. I thought this was a really good match. Back and forth matchup between Vikingo and Gable, with Gable applying an ankle lock quickly on Vikingo, but the hold is broken. Vikingo then was keeping the pace of the match by hitting a springboard 630 on Chad Gable, followed by a springboard Phoenix Splash. Gable then hits an avalanche powerbomb for a near fall on Vikingo. Vikingo then gets up, hits a Mexican Destroyer off the top, landing on the apron. Gable then hits a moonsault off the top through a ladder. Vikingo and Gable then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Gable applying an ankle lock on Vikingo, but the hold is broken. Vikingo then hits a Poison Rana on Chad Gable, followed by a 630 that he hits off the top rope, landing on Chad Gable, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match, and still AAA Mega Champion, is Vikingo. Hats off to Vikingo for getting the win in this matchup. A couple of things I want to talk about, man, when it pertains to WWE's Worlds Collide. For what it's worth, man, I don't think it was a bad event. I really don't. I think this is something where, the people that I talk to, this could be something where, it might not be something where it's like a Saturday Night's Main Event where they have it, once a month or anything else like that. Could I see them possibly doing another Worlds Collide event? Absolutely. I mean, there's already been, matches already being made right now for one of AAA's biggest events of the year, being Triple Mania, where I believe it will be Legado del Fantasma a part of this year's Triple Mania. It's one of the AAA's biggest show of the year, and they will be a part of that. So obviously, the working relationship, it's off to a really good start, in my honest opinion. But this correlates with a lot of other things with WWE. It's not just the main roster, but it's also NXT. You got that matchup at Worlds Collide for the NXT North American Championship. I thought it was match of the night, in my honest opinion. But it looks like it's going to be a great working relationship. I will say Mr. Iguana was immensely over with the fans that night at Worlds Collide. I thought it was a great gimmick. I thought the fans really gravitated towards Mr. Iguana. But it's great, man. I mean, for what it's worth, bro, I mean, this is something where, you got to look at the narrative. And I said this, last week, that would I be surprised if AAA somehow turns into NXT Mexico? No, I would not. I would not be surprised. I think it would be a great business move for WWE. I mean, there's already been talks and speculation that, they want to have an NXT Europe as well, NXT Japan. I mean, this is something that's been in the realm of speculation now for the past few months. And it's starting to pick up momentum. So, could I see a possible, NXT Mexico? Sure. Would I hate it? No, absolutely not. Because NXT, it seems as if NXT wants to go global. They want to make NXT into a bigger conglomerate than what they are. And not just be, live from Orlando and all we get is NXT and what we're getting now. They want to make it into a global brand. And I thought, for what it's worth, they wanted to do this before, right around the pandemic era. I mean, if the pandemic era didn't happen, then we could have been already looking at an NXT Europe by now. To be honest with you, I think the pandemic really shook a lot of things up, especially in professional wrestling, for even, WWE as well as AEW. So a lot of things had changed, in the history of wrestling at that time. So now that the pandemic's kind of over, we're looking at other options as far as what we can do, or at least WWE's looking at options of what they can do as far as venturing out. And I think the working relationship with AAA is going to be great. I think it's a win. It's a huge win for AAA. I mean, this puts AAA on the map. This gets, a lot more people, especially in the States, eyeballs on what AAA is doing. Because now we have the, this working relationship with both WWE as well as AAA. And like I mentioned earlier, we already have matches being made for one of AAA's biggest shows of the year, being Triple Mania, with having Legado del Fantasma a part of Triple Mania this year. So they're already, trying to work out details and work out things where the relationship works out great for both parties involved, being WWE and AAA. And I think it's going to work out really well. I really do. For those people out there that says that, this is going to be ridiculous, this shit's not going to work, give it time, man. I mean, you got to understand, this was the first time we've seen a Worlds Collide event since 1994. It's been a long time, man. It's been a long time. And, we finally got a second one after all this time. And for what it's worth, I mean, obviously a lot of things have changed since 1994 until now, 2025. But it's, you got to take it at face value, man. At the end of the day, WWE is a global brand. They are the main player right now as far as professional wrestling are concerned. I'm not sitting here saying they don't have their own issues. No, they do. And I will talk about that, when I do my Money in the Bank review. But I will say, there's issues with WWE. They're not perfect. But at the end of the day, they're trying to open up these olive branches for working relationships that might benefit both parties involved. I mean, you look at the working relationship currently going on right now with TNA, and it's working out tremendously. To a point where you actually have an NXT talent being Trick Williams, being TNA's current World Heavyweight Champion, for what I understand, unless he just recently lost the title, but he was a TNA World Champion, and this guy signed to WWE. So that's a big deal. It's a big milestone to have one guy being signed to one company and then being a champion in another when that guy signed to WWE. This never would have happened 10, 15 years ago. I can promise you that. You never would have saw Stone Cold Steve Austin being WWE champion and then walk over to Nitro and win the World Heavyweight Championship on Nitro. That would never happen. So to see Trick Williams be a TNA World Champion is a huge deal. Monumental. So, and then you look at, what they've done so far with TNA. You've had NXT talent go over to TNA, vice versa. They just had Mike Santana on NXT. It was a huge deal. And from what I understand, NXT is looking at bringing in Mike Santana as a full-time, a part of the roster. Why not? Mike Santana's great. Absolutely. Sign him up. You know what I mean? But this opens up a lot more doors for people in the professional, as far as being a professional wrestler, this is huge. You know what I mean? Because there's not just one option. There's not just WWE. There's TNA, there's WWE, there's AEW. So it has, a broader horizon of where these men and women can go, to wrestle. And I think it's a great thing. I think this could be something where if they're looking at the model of what TNA and NXT are doing right now, this can also be something where they can look at a relationship back and forth between WWE and AAA. And hopefully that does happen. And it should happen. I mean, we've seen Vikingo a lot leading up to this Worlds Collide event where he was clashing with Chad Gable leading up to this match that he was going to have with Gable defending the AAA Mega Championship. So hopefully we can see more back and forth here between AAA and WWE. And hopefully we can see some WWE talent go over to AAA and be a part of some of their storylines or some of their matches. I'm sure it'd be great to see Rey Mysterio walk through the doors of AAA. I think that place would go crazy. Or we had Rey Mysterio part of AAA. It would be huge. It'd be monumental. It'd be historic to see Rey come over to AAA. And, I mean, that place would erupt no matter where they're at. So, I'm all for it, man. I think the working relationships are really going to benefit WWE a lot. And especially AAA, man. This is huge for AAA. And to have this Worlds Collide event was huge. It was monumental for them. Because a lot of people in the States have no idea really what's going on with AAA. Or know anything about AAA. Especially the new fans of professional wrestling. A lot of them probably have no idea what AAA even is. So for fans that have been watching for a long time, this is this is a trip down memory lane because we've seen, AAA work with other companies. You look at the Worlds Collide event, I think it was WCW and AAA. And we saw the likes of Conan and Rey Mysterio and Psychosis and stuff like that. So it was great, man. It was monumental, and it was huge for AAA, and it's huge for AAA now. And that's one of the things that Ray was talking about when he opened the show of how far Lucha Libre has come up to this point. I mean, I told you guys at the beginning of the podcast, the beginning of the show, that, AAA or just Lucha Libre alone has been around for many, 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 many years with a lot of legends and historic value to AAA and what Lucha Libre means to a lot of people. This is a cultural thing for people in Mexico as far as Lucha Libre is concerned. I mean, I'm sure there's people there that, are wishing to be luchadors. And a lot of luchadors came out of Mexico that were great, man, and still are great. I mentioned El Santo. I mean, how big of a name he was in Mexico. He was huge. Blue Demon, huge. You know what I mean? And then you have guys like Rey Mysterio, who, like I said, really was the flagship person to really put, Lucha Libre on the map for people to understand what Lucha Libre meant for people in the States that had no idea what the concept was of Lucha Libre. And Ray brought that into the existence and showed the world what Lucha Libre was all about. And he did a fantastic job, man. And that's why he's a Hall of Famer. That's why he's won championships all over the world, multiple different companies, because of what he brings to the table as far as what he can do in that ring. Now, obviously, things have changed now that Ray's gotten older, but if you look at Ray and what he did when he was in his prime, and I'm talking, if you can't watch what he did in AAA, then go back to what he did in WCW in his early days. he was fantastic, man. I mean, the shit that he was doing in that ring was incredible. And that's why I said he was the flagship guy to really put Lucha Libre on the map for, fans in the States that had no idea what AAA was all about, because it wasn't like AAA was advertised or even showcased worldwide. It was mainly being showcased or televised in Mexico. So a lot of times people really, in the States, you weren't really getting an understanding of what was going on in AAA. So, yeah, this is a huge deal, man. This is something that hopefully they continue to keep working with AAA. They have more talent being a part of these AAA shows, especially Triple Mania. It's one of their biggest shows of the year. And, we'll see how this is going to play out. But I'm excited, man. I think this is going to be great. I think this is going to be something that can really benefit AAA, really put AAA on the map. I mean, especially with them working with WWE. Everybody knows about WWE. And, the money they can make with working with WWE. I mean, it's a win-win, really, for AAA. I said the same thing about TNA's relationship with NXT. It's a win-win situation. You can't lose in that situation at all. Especially for AAA, because now it gets a lot more people's eyeballs on the product. Now, after what we saw at Worlds Collide, people want to see Mr. Iguana again. Mr. Iguana was immensely over during that 6-man tag team matchup that he had. Immensely. The fans were gravitated towards Mr. Iguana. Just his presence alone. Not counting not even counting what he can do in the ring. And then Vikingo. Him hitting that 630, the Phoenix Splash. A lot more people now want to see, hey, where's Vikingo at? He's incredible. He's a great talent. We want to see more of Vikingo. So now, and WWE's already signed some of these guys to contracts, like, Dr. Wagner. Even Psycho Clown, man. Psycho Clown was immensely over as well as Pagano. We have Octagon Jr. in a WWE PLE match against Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental Championship. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. And it puts Octagon Jr. on the map. So, I mean, WWE is opening more doors for some of the talent that's working with AAA that a lot of us don't even know who these guys are or these women are in AAA. So it's a huge deal. It's a win-win for AAA, and I look forward to the next event. I'm not saying we're going to get another Worlds Collide. We may not. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to be like a Saturday Night's Main Event thing that we're going to get every month for a Worlds Collide. No, they should keep it special and do it maybe once a year or something like that. Sure, it'd be great. I'm not even opposed to them doing a Worlds Collide event where it's champion versus champion. I'm not against that at all. So, I mean, it's something that, man, they should entertain maybe doing, once a year. Sure. But this will be very beneficial for AAA. Absolutely. And it will put, their champions on the map and get a lot more fans really interested and intrigued on what AAA is doing. And, even with Triple Mania, I mean, they showcased Triple Mania and showed highlights of that. They talked about Legado del Fantasma being a part of Triple Mania this year. They even showed old school clips of the first original not AAA, but the first original Worlds Collide event that took place in '94. It was just great, man. I mean, if people saw that event or you go back and watch it, it's a trip down memory lane, man. It's the same thing they're doing with Saturday Night's Main Event. It's a trip down memory lane. Having Jesse Ventura a part of commentary. I'm a big nostalgia guy. If you guys are new to this show, I'm a huge nostalgia guy. Because you can't have a future without going back in the past, man. That history, that past has got us to where we're at today. It's the same thing with Lucha Libre back then to what it is now. I mean, if that never was even a concept, nobody would even know what Lucha Libre is or if it existed. But at one time it did, and it continuously kept growing and growing and growing into what it is now. And it's a huge deal, man. It plays a big time component in professional wrestling, especially nowadays, whether it's in WWE or TNA or even AEW. There's a lot of wrestlers nowadays that do a lot of high-flying maneuvers, and all that's a credit to AAA and what the luchadors have done throughout their careers in professional wrestling, because they're high flyers. So a lot of these wrestlers, nowadays have studied these guys like Rey or, Eddie Guerrero, and have studied and, learned what these men and women can do as far as being high flyers, and they studied and they took that in and they used it in their own arsenal moveset to what they can do, today. You look at someone like Will Ospreay, man. Ospreay, the shit that Will Ospreay does in the ring, man, you cannot tell me that this guy has not studied some luchadors throughout his time and built his craft and his skill base off that. You cannot tell me that he didn't. You know what I mean? You look at some people look at the one match that he had. He came out wearing a Hayabusa mask. I'm not saying Hayabusa was a luchador, but he was a high flyer. So you just, it's these wrestlers studying their favorites and putting that into their own skill set. I mean, you look at someone like Mercedes Moné. She's been very vocal about her favorite wrestler being Eddie Guerrero, and she still uses some of his moves in her own moveset, like the Three Amigos or the Frog Splash, because of how much Eddie Guerrero meant to someone like Mercedes Moné. And it's just great to see, man. It really is. It was great to see. It was even great to see Dominic Mysterio. I mean, that's, Rey Mysterio's son. He's involved in this whole Worlds Collide event in some kind of capacity, and then, he's attacking Octagon Jr. So it's great. It's kind of like a passing of the torch, if you will. And I'm all for it, man. I think it's going to be great, and I look forward to what's going to happen next here between WWE and AAA. And who knows? We might also, somewhere down the line, get another Worlds Collide event. But with that being said, this is my review of WWE's Worlds Collide. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.